Hey everyone, it is time to get political, I suppose. It is Black History Month, and we just have a new president in office right now, so I suppose it's kind of appropriate to talk about something a little bit more on the political edge. But also, if you've been watching my content, you know that I just don't mind talking about politics. It's just something I'm open to. I mean, when you come across any sort of media critique or discussion, you're going to come across some sort of, theme that could get a little bit political, just a little bit. Because usually art is some sort of form of self-expression, and some of those self-expressions come across, something a little bit more deep. And I do not shy away from that kind of deep talk. So, what are we talking about today? The Capitol building. So that brings us to today's subject, which is Capitol Critters. Capitol Critters is a show that tried to compete with The Simpsons, believe it or not, back on primetime television. So The Simpsons in the early 90s was at its heyday. It was just the biggest thing ever. And while it was broadcasting on, I believe, Fox, all the other primetime stations, ABC, NBC, and CBS, were just like, we want a piece of that pie, we want a corner in that market, we want our Simpsons. So they tried to do their own Simpsons. Surprisingly enough, all of these just failed. They either got canceled or they got such low ratings that everybody just forgot about them. Except for the internet, which still has an archive, basically an archive of almost everything known on this earth, aside from the occasional lost media. Now this is almost lost media, just because it was never syndicated onto any other networks aside from maybe Cartoon Network. And it was never distributed onto VHS, DVD, there are no reprints, Whatever you got on TV, that was it. Nobody cared about this show after it aired. So why is that? What kind of themes does it do? What does it talk about politically? And you will find all of that and more here on today's episode of How Furry Is It? Now, to give a quick summary of the premise of this show, you have Max. He's a young and spry mouse moving from Nebraska, the farmlands and such, over to DC, the big city, where they make all the big decisions and stuff. Coincidentally, the same day he tries to move out is the same day that the humans living in this little farmhouse exterminate the out of these mice. They gas the hell out of them. They're dead. That's his backstory. Move right along over to the big city with that baggage, That's your character. That's your character arc. You gotta get over that. I'm surprised this show had the, bravery to just throw that right in there and just to show, hey, this isn't a kid's cartoon. This is a Hanna-Barbera production, but this is not a kid's cartoon. This is a little deeper. So after that trauma, he meets up with his cousin, Berkeley, who is a overt hippie, very leftist, to the point of calling everyone a fascist.
Oh, please. Hippie, fascist.
She'd do perfectly well on Twitter. And then you have Jamit, a street-smart sort of a guy who's very... his worldview is basically, I got mine, I had to struggle to survive, that's just how you're gonna deal with it, okay?
Now remember, don't lose me, cause you ain't never gonna find your way to the sewer alone.
Sewer? We go home by sewer?
Why, you wanna rent a car or something?
His mother Trixie is kind of the same way, if not just more wise about her jaded perspective.
How's it hanging, Herbie? You wake up, you eat flies, you die. What do I know?
So let me break down the setting of this a little bit more. So you have the DC building, the Capitol in DC, and then you have the underground there, where all the mice and rodents and rats live there. And then you have further underneath that, the sublevel under that, where all of the cockroaches and other sorts of similar bugs live. Now, the rodents and mice and the insects hate each other. They do not like each other. You'll find out later why that is, and why it's a kind of a mixed message, but basically, they don't like each other, except for Max, just because he's not a jaded mouse that lives in DC. He's a country boy with a pure heart, and that's why he's such a lovable mouse, He's a good guy. He's just so good. Except when his innocence and reality just keeps breaking and breaking in almost every single episode. But it's good for his character, because sometimes you get to learn just how hard life is outside of the quiet country life. especially in the capital where all the big decisions are made.
There isn't anybody here who's thinking about their country. Everybody's just trying to figure out the best scam or who to bribe or cheat. And you know who gets shafted? The people.
Speaking of great characters, actually, they got a comedian, Bobcat Goldthwait. If you don't know who that is, just look him up on YouTube. He's a stand-up comedian that has a very unique voice and comedy style, I would say.
My life is so fast!
Which makes him perfect for a kid's cartoon. And he basically plays this hybrid of Pinky and the Brain, if both of them, well, basically given the Secret of NIMH treatment, I would say. Just lots of experimentation, maybe a little bit of electroshock therapy, and now he's a kooky kind of a Pinkie Pie character.
Excuse me! I'm gonna explode!
Like, this character has so many good one-liners, and is such a weird character in general that it makes him like almost the perfect kind of a comic relief in a bizarre way. I mean, there are more serious moments with him, but for the most part, he is a not very serious character. Similarly, the way the show handles its tone, it's a little bit strange. I don't think it works quite well, because this is a Hanna-Barbera production, along with Stephen Bochco. That's not a last name I'm familiar with. I apologize. But yeah, they both work together and create a show that is both political commentary and social satire, and woo! Cartoon hijinks, comedy, blah, 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 blah. And you take those two serious, like, stark ends of the spectrum right there, and sometimes you put them together, and I don't know, it doesn't work all the time, I think. It's a Hanna-Barbera production, so obviously it's gonna have, like, over-the-top cartoony crap in it. I think that might be part of the reason why it didn't get as popular as The Simpsons. Like, The Simpsons is pretty much, it has its slapstick and its physical comedy and all that, but it doesn't do it in such a, like, overt way in, like, a Hanna-Barbera cartoon with, like, all the cartoony effects, like... Although, like, the animation in this show is pretty good. Like, you can't really tell from the ripped and HD quality, but, like, you know, the structure and pacing is fine. The animation is good. It does its job. It's a standard Hanna-Barbera quality. I have nothing against it, other than sometimes the more cartoony style gets in the way of, like, a more serious point. Especially since there are literal character deaths in this show, followed by, you know... cartoony shit. But they also have a really good acting pool to bring into the show. Speaking of Stephen Bochco, he made Doogie Howser, if you didn't know. And guess who else stars in Doogie Howser? Yeah, Neil Patrick Harris. Guess who's the mouse? Max is Neil Patrick Harris. Oh, I should say Neil Patrick Harris is the mouse. And given his current acting personality and voice type and all that, I say it's a pretty good fit for the character. But you also have more seasoned cartoon voice actors like Frank Welker and Charlie Adler. And of course you have that comedian Bobcat Goldthwait playing a lab rat Goldcat. And the other actors that aren't so famous, they do their job pretty well in this cartoon. I also forgot to write this down in my script, but I do appreciate the music in it. And it just has a very unique quality to it sometimes. The first episode itself really caught me off guard with the more... It gives a very brass-heavy, like, American-style orchestral music, I guess I would say. And that kind of continues throughout the rest of the show. In the beginning, it really starts out strong, and I can always appreciate that. Now for what I didn't like as much, I mean, I already said there's a kind of a whiplash between that pendulum swinging. Without going into spoilers too much, there are episodes where it's really great political commentary and satire of a certain thing, and sometimes it's just not great. It misses the mark pretty hard. Sometimes there's a character arc that goes over pretty well and actually adds to the story. Sometimes it just, what kind of point are you making? What are you saying about this character? I don't understand. Like, it's very hit or miss. And I'm going to go into some more detail about it in the spoiler section of this video. There is a playlist down below of all of the episodes available on YouTube. Go ahead and look down there in the description. Keep in mind, there are only 13 episodes that were made just because this was a canceled series. I think it's unfortunate that it was cut short. I'll explain why later. Okay, you had your time to decide if you wanted to be spoiled or not, so let's move on ahead. I'm going to point to 2 episodes in particular when discussing how the show handles the serious subjects that it does. One where it does it really well, and one where it does it not so well. First, how it does it really well, the kilowatt riots. Basically, this is the episode about energy management and resources, and how that affects the common man. It starts out with the electricity getting cut off from the basement area. That includes the rats and the insects. The vermin and rats and mice and stuff up at the top of the basement. They basically start to panic because suddenly it's a hot summer day in DC and there's no AC, there's no lights, there's nothing working down there. All they have are candles, basically. And then, of course, Jamet, the jaded, cynical, street-smart guy, he is the one that finds a way, along with his team, to get some more energy from the building. And so he's paraded as a hero, but he takes this as a very opportunist kind of a way of, well, okay, you want your electricity? Give me your food, and then I'll give you some electricity. It's like basically gating common resources just so they can have some food. Something to snack on while they sit there looking all pretty and fat. And on the side, like, Bobcat Goldrat decides to like, hey, we need to do something like an alternate energy resource. And then Jamet is like,
who cares what you mean? If you don't have anything intelligent to add to the conversation, then beat it, you damn out freak.
So then Lab Rat Goldbob goes into his corner, works on the alternative energy resource. It works, it's pretty efficient, but all the meanwhile, there is an actual literal riot within the show just over energy resources. People are pissed. People are angry, rightfully so. And even Jamet's own mother is cut off because she cannot provide enough food to get more electricity. And then there's something about Jamet trying to do things right and trying to redeem himself while Max and one of the insect characters, Mose, tries to get some more electricity, not just for the mice, but like the entirety of the cockroach city is shut off as well. And then once they figure out a way, the energy turns back on. Everyone's just back to like normal. They're going back to brunch. The problem isn't really been solved, it's just been circumvented. They're still relying on the energy provided by the building, and not so much an alternate energy source that they can use themselves so that they don't have to rely on like an outer source that could turn off at any point. And so this is a really good discussion on how people actually feel about like an alternative energy and like green energy and stuff. I think at the end it sums it up pretty well between this dialogue here.
Don't be too hard on them, Max. They're only vermin.
Yeah, I know. It's just, we were fighting each other, Muggle. We've never done that before. What happens the day we lose power for good? They don't care.
So you have that, but like a couple episodes before that is the racism episode. There are actually a couple of episodes that deal with like this racism discrimination angle. It could have been so much better. So basically, the episode starts out, there's a roach couple that moves into the vermin territory. The vermin aren't having any of that. It's already implied from like episode 1 forward that the roaches and the mice and rats just hate each other. So when Max and Berkeley, the hippie cousin, bring up the fact that, hey, you're kind of hating on them for no reason. Like, why do you actually hate them? Why do you actually don't want them in your neighborhood? And then the vermin are just like, wait a minute. You're right, there is no reason. Let's just bring them into our neighborhood. As long as they leave us alone, they're A-okay. There's no possible reason we can hate them. And then the couple, they just litter little cockroach eggs all over the place. All of them hatch, 70,000 screaming children running around everywhere, unsupervised of course. And so the vermin are just like, of course, that's why we hate the cockroaches. My racism is suddenly justified.
I think I remember why my parents hated them so much.
I think you failed your message there. Like, they find out later that the roaches are useful and help out the mice and rats later, but it's like, you were already saying that they don't deserve to live with each other due to a certain condition that the roaches have in universe. And this is supposed to be your allegory of, like, racism between regular working class people. Do you not see the problem here? Like, just a broken moral of, like, you know, some people just don't deserve to live with each other. And sometimes it's okay to hate your neighbor for being their race or species. If you think I'm, like, totally off base about this, just let me know in the comments. But I just don't see why they wrote it this way. There's a video by Jack Saint about animal racism metaphors and stuff. I'll link that below. He goes into much more depth about it, and it's a pretty good video to think about. I don't know if he's exactly right 100% about some of the media that he talks about and the conclusions he brings up, but like, it's basically the same problem that I'm talking about now. Just to sprinkle a little something at the end here, there's an episode where Jamet gets it on, like actually gets it on with a hamster, and their romance is like just so fleeting and young, and like it is implied that they do the dirty dancing in the dark, but like they don't actually show it. This is still like TV appropriate stuff. He has feelings, and he you know, this is a great episode in terms of character development. And then it's the last episode of the series officially, right when it gets canceled. That's why I'm so disappointed. There's like, there are moments of greatness in this show, but like, it just stops suddenly before it can get good. Like, I can think of shows where early seasons and early episodes are just rough to go through, but like, the more you stick with it, the more you see all the good parts that actually show up. And I think this is the case of this show in general. This is just a hidden gem of a show that had some potential to be really good, but I think the execution and the fact that it had to compete with a different show, and just the whiplash of like serious emotional talk and like kooky cartoon bullshit, there's a missed opportunity here. And I think if you give this show a chance, you'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's talk about how furry this actually is. What are the furry qualities of this cartoon right here? So let's take this through the 3 points of rubric that I usually do. First is cast, just how many furry characters are in this cartoon. There are plenty of critters in this Capital Critters show, as the name suggests. There are plenty of rats and rodents and insects and stuff. We mainly focus on them. There's also the 2 cats that roam around the DC building, specifically designed just to kill and exterminate the vermin. Occasionally other animals show up. There's like a squirrel at one point, and he's a metaphor for drug abuse. There's an owl character there as well. He's like part of the deforestation discussion. Like, there are lots of animals that they use in this show just for specific purposes, even though they focus mainly on the ones that live underneath the Capitol Hill. Of course, you do have humans. You do have the human characters with like no faces. They don't show any human face in this cartoon. Like, it's the weird cow and chicken effect where the mom and dad basically don't have an upper body. It's just the humans in this Capital Critters show don't have a face. You just never see it. You see the rest of their bodies, you hear their voices, you see their body language, but you do not see their faces. I guess it's just easier to animate that way. Come to think of it, how would the humans actually look in this Hanna-Barbera style? Because, like, I think of human characters from Hanna-Barbera, and it's like, they're so blocky and cartoonish. Like, I think it was a great decision just to not do that, just from the fact that they may look like trash. But fair is fair. The amount of furry characters in this cartoon is a good amount, even if a lot of the conflict is primarily based on the humans surrounding these animals. The amount of characters that are in this show is a very high percent of furry, so I'm going to give this a high in terms of cast. Next is furriness. What are the anthropomorphic/furry qualities of these characters? Again, this is the classic Western cartoon style of anthropomorphization, the Hanna-Barbera style. For the most part, they are humanoid enough. They're given enough human quality that they stand out and are like a proper cartoon character. But like, they're still the animal that they are. You can tell when something is a mouse or a rat or a cockroach or a hamster. And sometimes there are animals where it's just, you know, the owl is like a literal owl. Like, he doesn't have like weird gangly arms and legs or stuff. This is also a rare occasion where you will see actual insects being like anthropomorphized instead of just being the insects that don't talk and act as pests. You know, the pests are the feature of this cartoon. They are the main focal point. How do the pests feel? How do the vermin feel? How are their lives? So the fact that they actually give them a voice and a face, like, that's a plus in my book, you know? Sometimes the dialogue flip-flops between, like, using more human terms and using more furry terms. You see this in cartoons all the time. Sometimes they say, give me a hand instead of give me a paw or a hoof, just because that's just the normal way of saying it as a person, because we are people watching this cartoon made by other people. You're gonna have those slips here and there, but like, you know, sometimes they actually correct themselves, and sometimes they forget and just like make a joke about it or lampshade it. Your culture and your surroundings basically form and influence like how you speak and think about things. I guess sometimes they take parts of the human culture within them, the humans surrounding them. Like, they are aware of human pop culture, actually. They make pop culture references that are timely, so obviously they know about human culture. Maybe I'm just thinking too hard about this, and they're just throwing in pop culture references just because it'll catch people's attention, but, you know, I'm a critic that thinks too hard about things. So I'm just going to conclude that they did this on purpose to show that the surrounding human influence basically gets in the way of their thinking and perspective sometimes. And that's the excuse of them occasionally saying hand instead of paw, or people instead of vermin.
No big deal. You're only human.
But anyway, I'm just going to cast this as a high in terms of furriness, just from all of that discussion. That's the only thing you need to worry about. Moving right along. Lastly, we have relevancy. Just how relevant is the furry nature of these characters, considering the whole show is centered around how the humans are affecting the lives of non-human characters. I think it's pretty relevant that these non-human characters are non-human. It would be very weird to have very small, miniature little troll people that live underneath the Capitol building, rather than like mice and rats. That would just be a very weird episode of Parasite. As much as I love that movie, I don't think it needs a cartoon remake. So these vermin and insects are basically a reflection of the working class culture, the normal US citizens that reside in the country, and how the humans, I guess the elite class or the politicians, how they treat them basically. And like, there are actually humans surrounding this show. There's a protest of actual people, and they do their own thing off screen. Well, I say off screen just because you can't really see their face or most of their action. You can tell by context clues what exactly is going on. But again, the focus is on the critters. This is like Fievel and American Tail, where all of the mice in that little movie were a reflection of how the Russian immigrants were coming to America and how they saw opportunity moving to a new country. And then when they got there, it's just like, oh well, this isn't as good as we thought. Oh well, might as well survive. And it's like a similar story here, actually. Fievel and American Tail actually did come out before this show, so I guess they got their influence from Don Bluth. You know, always a good thing, I guess. I mean, they both star a young mouse that escapes extermination. It's just one of them deals with more family death than the other. They're both kind of dark. It's just one's darker than the other in some regard. You could also say there's like some commentary of like the politicians seeing these rodents that are supposed to represent the working human class as pests and getting in their way of doing things, so they have to, you know, exterminate them. I'm sure there's some conclusion you can make of that, some sort of social satire or commentary you could say about that. I'm going to make you come to your own conclusion on that. But yeah, given all this, I'd say this is pretty high in relevancy as well. It's just barely getting there just because of how human-centric it is, but like, you know, that's the point of the show, and that still makes it pretty furry. So overall, the score of this is high, you know. This is a very highly furry series that I think everyone should check out, at least just the first couple of episodes. I think this is a hidden gem, honestly. I was never bored watching this show, despite its flaws. You know, sometimes a pretty gem can still have its flaws. There are moments of clever writing and jokes. There are plenty of times I actually just chuckled and laughed out loud. There are some touching moments as well. There's good music choice and good actors to play these mice. I do appreciate some of the commentary and like the satire, even if it's in a very cartoony package. But again, that's Capital Critters. Again, there is a playlist in the description for you to make up your own mind about this show. Maybe you're nostalgic about it, I don't know. I don't know a lot of people that actually know about this show. Especially the people that were like old enough to watch this series back then. They were like, yeah, I remember adverts about this show, never watched it. So, well, here's your chance. Also, in the description below, you will see my social media links. That will be my Telegram, my Twitter, and my Instagram. You will also find my TikTok handle down there. It's the same as my Instagram, just in case you want to watch a couple of short, silly little videos from me. You will also see my Discord screen name and a link to my Discord server. This is for all people to join that like furry content. You can talk to other fans of this channel. You can talk about your favorite movies or music or cartoons. You can share memes. You can do anything you want. You will also see a link to my Patreon. For at least $1 every month, just $1, you will have access to early viewings of my videos. That will be either the day or the night before. That's all my reviews, my vlogs, any kind of video that you see on my channel. There's also the option on Patreon to sponsor a video every month. If you are an artist or a small business, you can use my videos to advertise anything you want, any projects that you're working on, any causes that you need people to see. Again, that's all in the description below, my social media, my Discord server, and my Patreon. You can give a thumbs up if you like the video, a thumbs down if you dislike the video, I won't be offended. And you can also hit the subscribe button and hit the bell icon if you want to watch more videos from my channel. So you might want to watch a couple more videos before committing to that. So that has been How Furry Is It? Once again, I am Lightning Runner as Burger the Bull. Thank you for watching. As is Black History Month, go ahead and look up some Black-run businesses or some charities that help out people of color in your local community. And have a good day, you know? Take care. Be a good person. Don't be racist. I am a cow. Bye-bye. But they also have a really good acting pool to pull from. There's a pool to pull.
Don't be racist. I am a building and I've got news for you. Hey, there's Steven. Blacks and whites are even. How would you feel if the joke was on you?